Hi, and welcome to the Feed Zone, where we bring you the latest in popular media about endurance sports and the different things that you can apply to your training that will make you a faster, stronger, and healthier athlete. My name is Jason Flores, and I go by JFlow here. So, welcome. Quick medical disclaimer before we get started that the only purpose of this live stream is to educate and to inform, and it's not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or any other qualified professional. This live stream is also provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or any other professional advice or services. The goals of the live stream today are pretty simple. Present current articles in the media covering food and hydration and see how it relates to endurance sports. And also to open up a dialogue for viewers to ask questions and to get advice and to talk about their experiences. Today, we have a really interesting article. It's brought to us by Bicycling Magazine. We've all heard of the magazine. Definitely some really great information, short and to the point. So today we're going to talk about 7 ways to avoid overeating during the winter season. It's definitely really tough, especially with the temperatures coming down. I've got athletes all across different temperature ranges. Here where we're at, it does get a little cooler, but nothing like the athletes that I'm seeing kind of with negative digits out there. So definitely a tough time to really fight those urges and essentially not trying to bulk up during these trickier months against Mother Nature during these colder times of the year. So something that we can look at. It's a great article. It's written by Celine Yeager. I'm here from Bicycling Magazine. We're essentially going to go through and I'll explain a little bit about these 7 ways to avoid overeating and kind of some tips and how we can sum this all up together. All right, so we're going to take a look, and here we're going to start with the first 4 tips, and I'll kind of expand making soups, roasting veggies, drying out your meals, and getting into the zone. And so we'll start with these 4 and kind of expand. So when it comes to overeating, especially during the colder months, the struggle is definitely real for all of the athletes, and science just says that. So when the temperature comes down, the body just reacts in this way where the body wants to store fat. Essentially, fat for us as athletes equates to increasing weight. So we need to be very, very careful during this time to make sure that the body has what it needs so that it'll do what it needs as far as during this off season or this winter time, depending on your goals. So not surprisingly, when they did a study and looked at various times of food during kind of a whole year season or period, it wasn't surprising that the model predicted that given the opportunity, all animals, including humans, would overeat and store fat during the times when food was scarce, and more so when the temperatures were low. So what is us as endurance athletes, cyclists, what are we to do when food availability isn't an issue, meaning that we can get any type of food at any time? The urge is always going to be to overeat. So the trick is to getting the brain what it wants so that everything is going to be okay, and that's really, really the point. So let's get to our first point here. The first point is a really good one. So a lot of times during the on season, you'll do a big, nice, healthy size salad with a good amount of protein on top and that sort of thing. So during the winters, one thing that we can look at, or you can try to do, is make soups or have soups. It essentially will give what your body is craving for. You know, it'll be that feeling of a comfort food, that feeling of fullness. So soups, stews, chilies, all can do really great jobs here. And I definitely agree here. And especially with the addition of having a lot of those water levels and salt levels, these all play into fact as far as hydration is concerned. So definitely another good thing that we can look at. So these hot liquidy foods do take a little longer to eat, so it definitely can be more filling, or at least give the effect of feeling more filling. But these soups can definitely have a good amount of proteins and veggies, all these things, but it has that warming effect. And so these hot foods can definitely let you feel fuller and be satisfied with the appropriate amount of food, and you can still get those nutrients in. Roasting your veggies, definitely recommend this, and the reason why is because it actually brings more flavor out. So a lot of times, we do a lot of salads. They can lose their appeal, like I mentioned earlier, when it's super cold outside or the weather's not warm. So something like that, you could actually switch over to take taking a look at veggies and getting more satisfied by taking those veggies and roasting them. Really simple to do. Blast the oven at 450 degrees. Put a little oil on the veggies that you want to roast. Throw them in. 20-30 minutes later, you're good to go. So definitely brings out some flavors, some caramelization, some different things that you may not taste otherwise, that you can add to any of the proteins that you have during your meals, and actually mixes it up versus having this huge salad that we typically would, let's say, during in season. The other thing that we can look at is maybe drawing out meals, and essentially not in between the meals, but just taking our time to have the meals. So instead of going through and just sitting down and eating all 3 courses, let's say, or all the meal at one time, eating a portion, and then maybe having the second part of it a little bit later, and then kind of doing the soup, and then doing the appetizer, and kind of just taking our time with our meals a little bit longer. And that is also something that we can do to kind of trick ourselves, not really trick ourselves, because you're still getting the amount of food, because you're still getting the amount of calories. But sometimes when you eat so quickly, you can actually overeat very quickly, because your body doesn't have that signal saying that it actually has food in there, and it actually has felt full. So taking your time, whether it even be just one meal or just making that meal kind of split up into a longer period of time, could be very useful. Or just slowing down while we eat. Really, really important to kind of enjoy that time. The last one is actually have a pretty good of importance, or at least information-wise. It's called Getting into the Zone. It was really popular in the mid-90s. It went along very well with the CrossFit movement, and a lot of it is because at that time there was a very fat-phobic, and still is a little bit, as far as riders or athletes trying to eat more healthy fats and higher protein foods, while really limiting their sugars and carbohydrate intake. And so the style of eating was to make sure you're eating in different zones. In fact, where there was a good portion of fat and protein, and a decreased amount of carbohydrates. More so today, in the world of sports endurance, have we seen an even lower decrease in carbohydrates. But remember, we have talked about it before here on in the Feed Zone, that you need to make sure that you're fueling your workouts to be able to get good results. If you're not recovering properly, that is a problem. You need to make sure that you're fueling so that you can recover appropriately. But making sure you get the right amount of protein and fat, because they do take longer to digest, it can definitely lead to less overeating. So aiming for about, in this article, they talked about 30% fat, 30% protein, and 40% carbohydrate. Your mileage may vary, but finding what works for you will be important. You can also do cycling of the amount of carbohydrates that you have, and switching those off and being able to play with that. And that's where doing things like journals that I have a lot of my athletes do, just to give an idea for themselves, and also for me to figure out what's going on in their meal. And even more simply, you can actually take photos of everything you eat in a day, or even over a week, and look at everything and say, man, I'm eating too much, I'm eating too little, I'm eating a weird combination of things, or I'm eating a lot of X, Y, or Z. So really important. So trying to add different things that have healthy fats, like avocados, good proteins like beans and nuts that have protein as well, into your meals can help make things feel more satisfying because of the protein and fat levels that are found in those foods. So really good points there. We'll move to the last 3 here, and we'll talk about being a light seeker. I'm a big proponent of this first thing in the morning, or I would say for me, since a lot of us do train while it's still dark out, is when there is sunlight, is to get out there and get under the sunlight. So lack of sunlight during these shorter days, and that's typically what happens during these winter months, the days can be shorter. It can drop essentially a chemical called serotonin in our body, and that chemical is responsible for kind of that feel-good feeling, that feeling you get when you're under the warm sun and you have that kind of just happy feeling that people describe. So you can definitely not having that signal on, they have found, can lead to things like carbohydrate binges and just wanting to have just an overall consumption of food or calories. So in order to get this brain boost, if there is sun out, definitely getting outside to get some exposure. But if you are in a place where there's not, there's actually a way to be able to do this. And if you can search online, head to the Amazon store. There are things called light boxes, and what they are is just a simple box, and inside there they have a certain light and its temperature, color of the sunlight that you would have, whether at any part of the day. And an easy exposure of that, like on your desk in the morning to kind of wake you up, could be very easy to kind of boost this part as far as seeking more light. And for places that do have sun, opening the windows and the blinds, just brightening up the kitchen or wherever you're at, can make sure, versus this dark, dreary environment where you're just turning on all these artificial lights on. So looking to get sources of where you can get more light, allow yourself to get actual sunlight, can actually help. I have seen cases where both in my clinic, on my clinical side of things, patients come in having a lot of photosensitivity during this time of the year, and the reason why is because they're indoors under artificial light so much. So being able to try to get outside and utilize the actual sunlight, not only is it good for all the other things that it does, like vitamin D conversion and the serotonin chemical transmitters, it's just important to just feel good to get that sun when you're out. And then the last thing that we have on our list today is to keep moving. And it may feel like, things are cold, you just want to get under a blanket, you just want to stay in and not do that workout, not get out to that group ride, not put on arm sleeves, leg sleeves, a buff, a hat, everything to just stay warm, and just stay home and stay in bed. You will actually typically feel much better if you get out and exercise. One great thing that we have here on our platform, here with our indoor training, is that we're able to get to a place where it can be a bit warmer. It's definitely safe, and it's very close and easy to do. So something that we can definitely take a lot of advantage to. So of course, we all know that exercise not only burns fat and calories, which can help with the weight gain, but it's also a natural serotonin booster. So doing these things first thing in the morning could be very, very beneficial for riders to be able to lift their mood, and it essentially will help you feel kind of like you've done your job as far as triggering those things to not have overeating the rest of the day. So kind of overall, it's a really tough time as far as athletes kind of trying to understand what we call kind of the shifting of our bodies. So during the winter, your body will naturally hold on to weight, and it's something, if in fact you are in tune with your body, you'll find that the weight can shift during this time, even if there are no changes in what you're doing. And so it is a time for us as coaches to remind athletes that this is a time where it is okay for there to be body changes, and it is a natural part of our body to store calories during this time. But I think it is important also to stay focused with your training, understanding that when the weather does warm up, when your period of intensity increases, that if you are doing a proper periodization of your time, you'll find that it will shift back the other way. Just as long as you are not changing the things that you're doing, you're keeping smart decisions in your mind, meaning you're making good decisions by getting vegetables in every day. You're making sure you've got good, clean sources of protein and balancing your carbohydrates, whether it be cycling them or making a decision on if you are going to be doing and the amount that you're going to be having. Because during the season, like I said, if you are correctly periodized, will be a time where your carbohydrates may be a little bit less just because of the amount that you're riding. So you can't just come from a full tilt season, peak during your race and then head off to the off season and take in the same amount of calories of food, feel like, and do essentially less riding or less intense riding, and feel that you're going to kind of stay weight stable. And then I guess on one of the last topics we can bring up as we chat here is if in fact weight is a good marker for us to be able to use as we look at what is kind of what is our gauge of if we're doing what we're doing. So more and more for the athletes, as we get past that first layer of the onion, where we understand kind of what we're eating and we're making good choices, the better marker would be your fat percentage, meaning getting a scale of sorts, calipers, and learning how to do those measurements accurately could be very, very useful for athletes to understand kind of what is actually shifting the scale, and not the weight scale per se, because you could easily increase muscle and then the weight would actually stay stable or increase, and then decrease fat amount, or vice versa during a certain time of the year. So it's important to understand what in fact could be a better measure, and I encourage you to take a look into, is looking at the amount of fat fat percentage of the body. And so getting a way to be able to scale that and watch that over time could be very important. But again, to understand that there are shifts in different parts of the year that allow the body to naturally hold in, more fat. If you are super lean during, let's say, the winter time and it's super cold, naturally the body would actually want to have some fat to stay warm. That makes sense. So as things warm up, the body will allow that to be released. It will allow that if you are doing the right things, and again, making the right choices, getting the workouts in, that sort of thing, and that is the shift that we're looking to do. So really, really nice kind of sum up as far as a couple things that we can talk about. And the last couple podcasts and live stream have been about kind of winter and kind of ways to fuel during winter, as well as, watching the different things that we eat. It's just a time to just better understand kind of what's going on. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for logging in to the live stream today or listening into the podcast. And if you are watching this on a replay on the live stream or the video, don't forget that you can get on your favorite podcast app and actually subscribe to this and other podcasts that we have here on the Zwift Live by ODZ. So all you need to do is go to your podcast app and search for the Endurance Lab. And that's where you could find the Coach's Corner. That's where you have the coaches from the Endurance Lab chatting about week in, week out of what's going on in the Endurance Lab. You've got Justin Wagner with What's Up with Power. You've got Taya Friedstead with Chat and Chill. And you've got me here in the Feed Zone here at the end of the week, just bringing up really popular media stuff, trying to break it down for you guys to just get a better feel for that. So I want to thank Bicycling Magazine for throwing this article towards my way. And if you guys have any articles that you would like us to cover here on In the Feed Zone, let me know. And just ping me online here on Facebook or on Team ODZ on the Facebook group there. However you like to do that, or leave a message here in the podcast or on the YouTube channel, whatever you like. So thanks for joining in, everybody. I hope everybody has a great week. And if you have any questions, I will post the full link in the article here. And don't forget to click subscribe. What's the worst thing that can happen? You just get really great content every week here on the podcast and or on Zwift Live by ODZ. And with that, I will see everybody next week. And thanks for joining In the Feed Zone.